A blinding, incredibly bright light pursued the young girl. Opening her mouth in a silent scream, she could only watch as this glow slowly but surely consumed her. A weak, barely perceptible pulse, and a quiet squeak coming from the cardiograph. Hospital walls, for the girl lay unconscious in the bed. Life in her weak body was supported by an oxygen mask. A dark-haired guy bent over her, stroked his pale and cold-to-the-touch face and straightened his thick bangs. His sister always liked to go against her brother, and now she doesn't even react to his bullying. It's so uninteresting. The stranger barely whispered bitter words, only now, when his sister definitely couldn't hear him, did he find the courage to admit that she was not the only one in the family whose abilities had awakened. He himself woke up, and now he came for a reason, or rather, not only to check on his unconscious sister. His ability is stealing. The guy can steal the abilities of others. And now a soft blue pearl was flickering above the girl's head. D-rank ability Steal Complete Mental Blast. Sends a mental blast to attack enemies. Weak, but it's a sister ability and has a special meaning. The pearl levitated above the guy's palm. He was surprised at the acquisition, because if it was stronger, then Trisha would not have instantly turned into an ice statue from an unintentional attack. The guy wondered if it was really unintentional, because the distance to Trisha was so far. Screams were heard from the corridor. Female and male voices vied with each other, shouting, calling someone a murderer. They were objected to. They were told that that person had saved more people. They called to calm down, because it is impossible to control everything at once. It so happened that Miss Sinclair was just in that store. It was the mother and father of a brother and sister. The lawyer of the man who almost killed their daughter was now defending him, saying that they did not want this, because heroes are not gods, and they are already trying their best. Sometimes they can accidentally harm others while fighting the monster. The woman sadly covered her face with her hands. Her husband threw the documents from the lawyer on the floor and shouted that he would not sign these papers. Let him take his stinking money and get lost. A drop of sweat ran down the lawyer's temple. He vividly imagined what consequences awaited his client. The next moment, the door to the hospital room slammed, and the guy's hand reached out to the tablet with documents. His father tried to reason with his son, appealing to reason. Does he really want to exchange Trisha's life for money? But he put his hand on the man's shoulder and squeezed lightly, answering that his sister was in a vegetative state, and their family needed money to provide their sister with everything she needed. Although conflicting feelings fought within my father, he did not answer. The words immediately stuck in his throat. While the parents hugged each other and tried to console each other, their son demanded additional conditions from the lawyer. The man, soaring in spirit, leaned forward with interest. The guy wanted the hero who harmed his sister to apologize in person, face to face. Moreover, the Berkshire Company should also make an official apology. The lawyer's plump body shook with disappointment, and he asked if it would be possible to apologize on his behalf. But the guy answered firmly, the hero needs to come here in person. The lawyer began to apologize profusely. The A-rank hero's schedule is overloaded. David Evans Jr. would like to personally apologize, but he is too busy fighting and cannot come here in person. In addition, they are willing to pay $100,000 more as compensation. His interlocutor grinned when he heard the proposal. Quickly scribbling on the papers with a pen, he, without looking at the lawyer, handed over the tablet, who ingratiatingly accepted the documents. The windows of the multi-story hospital illuminated the empty street. The lawyer, in high spirits, called the client to inform him that he had settled everything. He only had to add another $100,000 in compensation. At the other end of the line, a smiling guy, drinking a soda, praised the man, promising that his secretary would send the money later. The lawyer hung up the phone and chuckled. Yes, heroes like to relax. If only he could awaken his ability too. The brunette returned to his sister's bed, and, as if she could hear him, asked not to be blamed for signing the contract, especially in such conditions, but the sister should not worry. He will find out the whole truth because he does not believe that it was all unintentional. Clutching his coat in his hands, the guy promised that he would change this world, because some awakened ones are not worthy of being called heroes. The guy's name was Adam Sinclair. He worked as a trainee reporter, and his sister Trisha, according to eyewitnesses and the savior himself, was unintentionally harmed by an A-rank hero. To implement his plan, Adam moved away from his parents to another area. In Albuquerque, the guy will be able to carry out his plans without disturbing his grief-stricken parents. Adam rented a room in a small dorm, and now, Entering the common living room, he met two girls. Sitting on the sofa, she immediately introduced herself and her friend, a pretty blonde. Another neighbor was not home yet. The girls' names were Mary Perry and Karen Walt. The latter, a little older, asked what his name was. The guy introduced himself with a bored look. Mary smiled sweetly and offered to celebrate the arrival of a new housemate, because this did not happen often. Karen said she would be in the library since she had just started university, so they could have fun without her. Adam turned around with his suitcase and went into the room, answering on the fly that this was not necessary. He had only recently arrived here, was tired, and wanted to rest. The girls looked at him with puzzled looks. The guy, without unpacking his suitcase or taking off his outerwear, fell onto the bed with his arms outstretched. Then he took out his mobile phone and went to a video hosting site, turned on a video where heroes fight monsters. Quite a lot of people have already watched it. He noticed that many videos had appeared explaining the abilities, when a black portal, with bright lightning around it, appeared on the phone screen that someone had filmed in the sky. Adam did not remember when this happened, but dark portals suddenly began to appear all over the world, through which monsters arrived on the planet. For example, huge saber-toothed wolves with glowing eyes, as if enlarged several times by the force of a net. The planet could stop the invasion of these monsters only thanks to those with abilities. Those who were lucky were called heroes and idly faded at every victory, like celebrities on carpets, where in the case of heroes there were destroyed roads. To prevent hunters from abusing their abilities, the ability law was passed, which stated that only hunters who passed the test and were certified as a hero could use their abilities. Taking a closer look, the brunette realized that he was watching the video in which Trisha was wounded by the hero. Adam exhaled heavily and locked the screen of his mobile phone. Now he didn't find anything suspicious. It's better to study the video again tomorrow. Accidentally glancing at the screen and seeing the time, the guy realized it was already 3:30 in the morning, and he still needed to brush his teeth and wash his face, because a lot of work was planned for tomorrow. The brunette quietly slipped out of the room, throwing a towel around his neck, and carrying a glass of toothpaste and a brush in his hands. Suddenly he heard a noise ahead, and suddenly raised his head. A dark-haired girl walked from her room, clinging to the wall and barely moving her feet. The guy immediately guessed that this was the last neighbor. The stranger did not notice anything around her, and was clearly out of her mind. It seemed that she was completely drunk, judging by her blush. Adam said hello according to all the rules of etiquette. The girl tried to answer him something, but immediately covered her mouth with her hand, trying to stop gagging, then very quickly asked permission to be the first to use the restroom. The guy didn't even think to object to her. Before she could close the door, she fell to her knees in front of the toilet and threw out the entire contents of her stomach there. After a few minutes she felt much better. The neighbor turned away and put her elbow on the headband to sit more comfortably and probably fall asleep in this position. Adam immediately reached out to her, asking if everything was okay. Then he hesitated, stopped, thinking about something. A man should not come too close to a girl in such a state. He knocked on the door of another neighbor, Mary Perry. She opened the door, yawning, and with her eyes closed asked why little Adam was not sleeping when it was already so late. He apologized for the disturbance and explained the situation, offering to help the drunk girl, because he, a man, was not very comfortable offering his help. Mary, yawning widely again, waved her hand because this was not the first time. It was better to leave her there, especially since it was already very late, and she had to get up for work tomorrow morning. A moment later, the door slammed in the brunette's face. It seemed that only he could help the girl. Returning to the bathroom, he found her sitting in the same position. He apologized, but rather to himself, since the neighbor was clearly fast asleep. Adam picked her up and immediately felt it. The brain overload ability had been discovered. So the discovery, this girl is the owner of an F-rank ability. Brain overload puts the brain into overdrive for a short period of time, greatly increasing the brain's processing abilities, an ability the owner doesn't seem to know she has, although she feels like she has good potential for development. The guy carefully put his neighbor on the sofa, covered him with his coat, and thought that this strange girl might think that she was very smart, and if she studied well, she would become the best. However, Adam decided to steal the ability. In the future he will definitely repay it somehow. Having successfully completed what he started, the brunette smiled to his thoughts. I wonder what effect this will have on him. 2 pearls, The mental abilities of brain overload and mental attack levitated on Sinclair's palms, and the system asked if he wanted to combine them. The guy said loudly, "Unite," and the pearls flew up, leaving colored trails in the air. Then they collided with each other, merging into one. The combination of abilities is completed. The red pearl fell into the brunette's palm. Now Adam had a D+ rank ability Superbrain, could automatically send mental attacks, received a significant increase in his ability to calculate and deduce. However, this ability must be used wisely. The guy thought he could find some clues in the video of the incident in which Trisha was injured. The next morning he was awakened by a knock on the door. Yawning loudly, Adam opened the door. Having finally woken up, he was dumbfounded when he saw his guest. The beautiful neighbor, whom he had carefully put to bed yesterday, now stood in front of him. Introducing herself, she handed over her coat and thanked him for his help. The guy was speechless for a second, admiring Lily Romero. Introducing himself in response, he noticed to himself that the neighbor looked very innocent. He realized that he had taken away her ability, even though Lily didn't know she had one, but still asked if the girl felt discomfort. She smiled sweetly, answering that everything was fine and there was no need to worry about her. Having accepted the coat, the guy returned the smile. "That's good." The front door suddenly opened and a plump guy, Adam's friend, walked into the hallway, loudly greeting him. Lily and Adam turned their heads sharply in his direction. The sudden guest opened his mouth at the sight of the charming girl. He pointed his finger at his friend and, without any embarrassment, shouted that he was meeting someone behind his back. The brunette immediately tried to justify himself, telling him not to talk nonsense, because this is his neighbor with whom he lives. Opening and closing his mouth like a fish, the guy thought that he had acted recklessly when he rented the entire apartment. He immediately smoothed his hair, coughed into his fist, and collected his thoughts. George Ripley, that was his name, was a friend and colleague of Adam. He extended his hand to the dumbfounded girl and introduced himself. She politely introduced herself in response and shook the outstretched hand, understanding what would follow. As expected, George, without letting go of the girl's hand, immediately offered the girl a photo shoot, because with the help of his ability to take photographs and shoot videos with his bare hands, he could take a couple of beautiful photographs. Lily didn't know how to get rid of such annoying attention. Fortunately, Adam came to her aid and pulled away his friend, impressed by the female beauty, citing the fact that Ripley had come to pick him up to take him to the editorial office, and they were on their way. The guy did not give up, and tried to return to the conversation with the beauty, but nothing worked out for him. The Louisville Publishing Company was in full swing. Adam did not waste time and turned on the desired video on the screen of his work monitor. There, a hero in a special elaborate costume was circling with might and main around a huge wolf. Using his ability, he released long magical ropes from his palms, and they pinned the monster to the ground, digging straight into his body. Superbrain deduction activated, the guy peered carefully at the screen. He analyzed what he saw with all his might, reading every movement and blow. Suddenly he tensed, and his eyes caught on something. Adam noticed the strange movement of the hero. He put his hand to his mouth, and the guy thought it was familiar. He didn't have time to fully understand what he had seen when George suddenly distracted him by nudging him, sitting down in a chair next to him, and cheerfully asked why Adam wasn't interested in flirting with girls, especially with such a beautiful girl like Lily. Laughing, the guy assured that if his friend didn't start, he would do it himself. Adam did not appreciate the joke and replied that he and Lily were just neighbors. There was no need to go too far. Jolly George said that from flatmates to bedmates is very easy, and he can teach a friend if he doesn't know how. Suddenly, a crash and screams were clearly heard outside the window, signaling the appearance of a monster. Ripley instantly stuck to the glass. Not far from the editorial building, a portal opened in the sky, and from there, moving many pink tentacles, he appeared the one-eyed killer. Like a huge jellyfish, the monster walked through the city with the help of its appendages, destroying everything in its path. People ran away, desperately trying to escape. The one-eyed killer sank down, his disgusting body pulsating. At the same time, an announcement was heard from the loudspeakers. A monster has appeared, a B-rank disaster. Go to the nearest shelter, heroes are on the way. And indeed, jumping over the boulders of destroyed asphalt, one of the heroes appeared on the horizon. An athletic, large man in a red suit that covered his entire body slowly moved towards the monster. It was the superhero of hot and sour noodles, urging citizens not to be afraid. He would not allow anything to happen to the city of Louisville. The crowd stopped abruptly when they heard a familiar voice. It was the B-rank hero, the Superman of hot and sour noodles. He had come to save them. Compared to the one-eyed assassin, Superman looked very tiny. George read information about the monster using his ability, creating a tiny virtual screen right in his hands. The one-eyed killers have not only defensive power, but also a psychopathic melee ability. It will be very difficult for 18 spiders to cope with him, and the superhero noodles may even lose. The guy looked around and didn't see his friend. The thought flashed that Adam was running very fast. He pointed the camera and aimed with his eye, giggling, "Ordinary people are so weak. It's time to make some money with your ability." A fire butterfly flew over the Superman of hot and sour noodles, a hero of the C rank. A long-haired, red-haired girl in a tight jumpsuit that favorably emphasized her figure. The butterfly's wings were made of fire itself. She asked if the elder needed help. He, looking back, said that the girl had arrived on time, let her attack the monster while he held him back. The fire butterfly flashed its eyes and nodded. Right now, there was a heroic live subscription broadcast all over the city, hosted by director Zachary and Nicholas Roserf. The director commented on what was happening in a well-trained voice, as if he was not watching a bloody battle, but was sitting at a football match. The superhero of hot and sour noodles, a melee hero, was very selfish and narcissistic when he first appeared. His partner enthusiastically asked why Gregory was giving such feedback. He replied that to activate his ability, the hero needs to eat a bowl of hot and sour noodles, so he usually appears after the other heroes have already exhausted the monster, and then kills it. Nicholas Roserf laughed, saying that as expected of a director, he always divulges information that other people don't know. The man coughed into his fist and suggested stopping the chatter and watching the live broadcast of the battle. It seems that everything was not going so smoothly. The hero jumped and, as planned, flew straight onto the monster's body. He clenched his teeth, running his elbow as hard as he could right into the one-eyed assassin. They were immediately surrounded by many golden butterflies. The fire butterfly flew closer and shouted to the elder to move aside. Generating flames in her hand, she pointed her hand directly at the monster. A second later, a powerful stream of fire fell on the alien. He was pinned to the ground. The tentacles began to tremble in pain. Commentators debated, looking at the screen, whether the monster's life was coming to an end or not. Nicholas looked in surprise at the director, who doubted victory, and asked why. The man replied that monsters are also smart, and he did not see a single sign of anxiety in this monster. The superheroes stood nearby, watching the one-eyed killer burn in flames. There was a crackling sound and the flames split into pieces. A safe and sound killer crawled out from there, changing the color and shape of his body. The hero of hot and sour noodles cursed. The alien has evolved, and now his body has a fire-resistant shield. The butterfly tearfully asked him to hold out longer, because some time would pass before the others arrived. The man lowered his head, remembering the conversation that was important to him. The head, sitting at the table, lectured the superhero. He had already reached the peak of his career as a professional hero. If he wants to break through and become one of the most famous stars of the company, then he can no longer lose. Because if he fails, his fame will decrease, resources will go to younger heroes. The hero of hot and sour noodles firmly decided that he would never lose his place in the company. Adam stood very close to the thick of things and peered anxiously at the heroes. It did not escape a careful glance that the superhero of hot and sour noodles, unnoticed by the others, quickly swallowed some kind of blue glowing pill. Adam opened his eyes. He had already seen such a pill once. At that moment, the tentacle grabbed the fire butterfly in its vice. She, calling on the elder, tried to get out of the grip. The townspeople could see with their own eyes how the heroine, wrapped in a huge tentacle, was weakening. Some commented on what was happening. The one-eyed killer threw the butterfly, tightly bound in his paws, up, and she screamed heart-rendingly, with the last of her strength, that she did not want to die. Suddenly, one of the monster's tentacles was torn in half. The huge eye looked around the space around itself in bewilderment. The stranger was confused and released his prey. The butterfly was immediately picked up by the superhero of hot and sour noodles, landing heavily on the asphalt. In the studio, Nicholas Roserf slammed his fist on the table in joy. He exclaimed admiringly into the microphone that this superhero could only stay in fighting shape for 15 minutes. But this time he lasted, and became even stronger than before. The guy rose from his seat and triumphantly raised his fist up. The hero has not aged yet. Gregory straightened his tie. Apparently he was embarrassed for his judgment. The man muttered that this was quite unexpected. Before he could finish speaking, his colleague was glued to the screen, screaming that the one-eyed killer was attacking the hero of hot and sour noodles. Right now, the alien and the hero were opposite each other. The one-eyed monster was the first to rush towards his opponent, but his tentacles collided with a bright blue glow, the superpower of the hero hot and sour noodles. The man flew forward, electrified, glowing with power, and mockingly asked if this was really all the monster was capable of. Something was brewing. Superman decided to finish off the one-eyed killer with his main weapon. The monster's eye became twice as large after seeing what he was about to experience. Hot and sour kick in action. Having hit his target with a direct hit, the hero immediately flew away in the opposite direction. He landed on the asphalt and didn't even turn around. He knew that behind his back the alien was being torn to pieces by superpower. Suddenly the man doubled over, blood spraying from his mouth. Hot and sour noodle Superman collapsed to the ground with his head hanging low. The monster had long since died, dismembered in two, and his partner immediately ran up to the eldest. But the winner turned sharply. Thick veins appeared on his face. His eyes burned with a bright light. The fire butterfly was horrified and screamed loudly. She grabbed the older man's shoulder, asking what had happened to him. But the man did not answer. He clenched his teeth. He understood that he had to control it. Seconds later, the hero of hot and sour noodles regained his composure. Smiling from ear to ear, he awkwardly scratched the back of his head, telling Butterfly that it was okay. He was just using too much of his powers. She calmed down, but the man really scared her. Both heroes seemed to be walking along the red carpet, while a happy crowd of gratitude shouted after them and declared their love with might and main. Adam, who had been watching the progress of the battle from his hiding place, was about to leave. When it was all over, he was thinking that he had completely forgotten about the blue pill, and he would still need to prepare the news. At that moment, out of the corner of his eye, he saw some movement right next to the body of the defeated alien. The guy turned and looked carefully in that direction. It turned out that a very tiny clone of the one-eyed killer remained in the womb of the murdered man. Adam belatedly realized that he was moving in big leaps in his direction. His physical and elemental defenses are so high that maybe his mental attack will be his weak point. The clone, jumping closer and closer to the brunette, threatened revenge on the hero of sour and spicy noodles. And when he finds a master, he will absorb his energy. Suddenly his gaze fell on Adam, and he chose him as his master. The guy didn't seem to be worried at all. He was just surprised that the clone sent himself here. The brunette grinned. Well, since the prey is in hand, it means it's worth getting his ability. Sinclair extended his hands, activating his stealing powers. The little monster stopped, sensing the force from outside, and the next moment he fell headfirst, dead. The flow of energy did not escape the attention of the fire butterfly. She immediately realized that someone was using her ability. Adam grabbed the dead one-eyed killer by the body and squeezed it in his palm. It's good that he was just a weak clone, but even his weakness was mental attacks. The mental attack of a D+ rank guy could not kill the monster instantly. The guy began to extract the ability, and soon the blue pearl was already floating into his hand. The ability that had so easily left the alien's body levitated above the palm. Ability of rank B, Fireproof Shield, gives immunity to fire attacks below rank B, significantly increases physical defense, a very useful tank ability. Adam noticed with delight how his entire body was illuminated with a bright glow. Did this really mean that the ability acted on him like an invisible shell covering the surface of the body? He held the orange and blue pearls in his palms, and thought that no matter how strong an ability was, it would always have a weak point. This popular phrase in the world of abilities did not seem to have any effect on him. Meanwhile, the fire butterfly flew low over the houses, looking for a source of energy. Adam heard her scream and quickly hid around the corner. It was not yet time for the heroes to find out about him. The girl disappointedly sat down on the asphalt just not far from the guy. She felt a sharp surge of psychic energy here and definitely saw someone. A man in a mechanical rooster mask came out from the shadows to her. His whole body was covered by a long cloak with a gold brooch. He asked if the heroine was looking for him. Fire Butterfly turned around and in turn asked if he had just used his ability. Sinclair stepped into the light, walking with his metal suit through the puddles. His mask was reflected in the water, shining in the sun. They stood quite far from each other. The girl carefully asked if the stranger was a hero, because she had not seen him before. Throwing the one-eyed killer clone aside like a ball, Adam said that he was just a passerby who helped her clean up. The butterfly stared in surprise at the dead alien at her feet. Could this really be a clone of the one-eyed killer? Looking up at the stranger, the girl thought how amazing it was that he was able to finish off such a strong and dangerous monster in an instant. But he is not a hero, and should not use his powers without permission. Adam was about to pass by, and politely asked permission, but the heroine put her hand in front of him, urging him to stop. She pressed her chest directly into the guy's cloak and screamed that he was illegally using his ability, which means he would have to follow her to the Hero Association for verification. Singular, to her surprise, tooted impatiently. A low voice, muffled because of the mask, asked Butterfly if she really thought she could stop him. The heroine immediately flew into the air, spreading the flames around. The stranger's actions are contrary to the law of abilities, and by law she has the right to take action against him. Fire Butterflies surrounded Adam. He asked if this is really what heroes should do to ordinary people. Suddenly the guy grabbed the wing of one of the butterflies with his fingers, and the next moment, the stunned heroine watched as the stranger squeezed his palm forcefully. All that was left of the defeated butterfly was smoke. The guy turned his head to the girl. Is it really now his turn to attack? It worked, and within a second the fire butterfly was already high in the sky. As she flew away, she shouted an apology that it was not her fault, and there was no need to kill her. Adam's memory flashed back to the moment when the superhero of hot and sour noodles swallowed the blue pill, as well as the hero's gesture on the glacier were those two doing the same thing. The guy took off his mask and firmly told himself that he would definitely find out the whole truth. The calm of the night in the city of Louisville was disturbed by the sounds of an elevated train. Adam sat on the bench, thinking that for now it was necessary to stop collecting abilities. We need to focus on developing a brain reboot. He closed his eyes, completely lost in thought about searching for information about the blue pill. The guy heard a man's voice very close. Opening his eyes, Adam automatically moved his hand along the seat next to him. Where the backpack lay it was empty. The guy shuddered and for several seconds could not understand where he had gone. He jumped up, trying to find the thief, because there was a rooster suit in his backpack. The things were definitely stolen by the guy in the jacket passing by. Sinclair examined the entire carriage. The thief could not have disappeared, because they had not yet reached the station. Could he be someone with the power of invisibility? Then what about his scent? Adam activated Brain Reboot, enhanced senses and immediately realized that the smell of the backpack was coming from a nearby guy. But the aura and clothes of the calmly standing stranger were completely different. This means that this is not invisibility. There may be some other ability to change appearance. However, the guy was not at all upset, because this ability came into his hands on its own, and would be very useful. Sinclair tirelessly followed the guy with bright hair through the night streets, keeping a safe distance. He whistled something under his breath. Today is harvest day. Suddenly he raised his eyes to the sky and thought that he felt strangely nervous. The thief turned around sharply and saw the very passenger from whom he stole the backpack. How could he expose him, and even begin to persecute him? Without thinking twice, the stranger took off and ran as fast as he could forward. Today he was clearly unlucky. The nearest hiding place was a public toilet. The brunette slammed the door open, loudly asking if the thief was going to use middle school tricks by hiding in the closet when he was too weak. There were no stalls in the men's restroom, and there was no stranger there either. The guy looked in surprise at the pink sign. Had the kidnapper really entered the women's restroom? Adam knocked on the door of the cubicle, from where a rustling sound was heard, and called for him to leave. A squeal was heard from there. He was called a pervert. Adam opened the door with his foot. It means he likes to do everything the wrong way. From the depths of the booth, at first glance, a female silhouette appeared. Toilet paper and a whole set of cosmetics instantly flew at the guy. All this was accompanied by cries for help. The brunette, in bewilderment, peeled off layers of paper. He admired the ability the thief had. He was even able to change his voice. Sitting hunched over on the toilet lid, the same guy was looking at him, but already in women's clothes, very open, a top, a short skirt and stockings with heels. The guy asked for forgiveness. This was his first experience of transformation. Adam said with disappointment that the ability cannot change the body and appearance. The thief almost cried. How unlucky he was. With a guilty look, he handed the backpack to the owner. He even tried to smile to smooth out the conflict. The first thing Sinclair did was open the backpack and make sure that the things were still there. Hanging over the stranger, he sternly asked if he had looked inside. But the guy, stuttering, replied that he had not even opened it. Adjusting his glasses on the bridge of his nose, the brunette advised him to find a normal job in the future and be a good person. Sitting on the toilet and clasping his hands in a prayer gesture, the thief assured that he would never steal again and thanked him for being spared this time. The answer to him was Adam's low, threatening voice and disappointment. No one was going to spare him. The booth lit up with a bright blue light, blinding the thief. Leaving the toilet and throwing the red pearl in his palms, the brunette remembered that he promised himself not to collect abilities anymore, but now he could not resist such a temptation. F-rank ability is change clothes anywhere. You can change clothes with one movement of your hand. It also comes with storage space. Sinclair did not hesitate and immediately used the acquisition on himself. He left the building in a new, expensive suit, changed his hairstyle and took off his glasses. Looking around himself, he smiled. What a convenient and useful ability. There were 2 policemen standing at the exit. They received a message from a citizen that someone was screaming in the women's toilets. Adam pointed his finger towards the restroom and replied that he heard screams, and even saw a pervert in disguise there. Looking after the half-naked thief, who was being led away by the police, the guy thought that some people with abilities did not deserve them. He must definitely correct this. A week passed. Echoes of music from the club sounded in the silence of the night. Adam drove up there in a taxi. He got out of the car and slammed the door. He was called to the meeting by George, who was standing nearby, greeting his friend. The brunette asked what he wanted, since he even had to call him here. Cheerful as always, Ripley put one arm around his shoulder and mysteriously asked him to guess who he had just seen in the nightclub. Adam muttered something, and his friend replied with a sly smile that his girlfriend Lily worked there as a maintenance worker. The brunette narrowed his eyes and asked not to call the neighbor his girlfriend anymore. Approaching the door, George's enthusiasm did not subside. He, in turn, asked to stop pretending, and that his friend would understand everything when he saw the performance with his own eyes. Loud music and darkness, diluted by bright flashes, blinded Sinclair. When both entered the club, Ripley called him to the nearest table. In a large human-sized cage, in a revealing bunny costume, she danced Lily Romero. Each dance movement was accompanied by an unambiguous rubbing of the rabbit's tail on the pole. The girl was the first to notice those entering and was stunned. She slowed down for a moment, panicking. What is her neighbor doing here? Adam sat with his hands on his knees. George carefully sipped a cocktail and consoled his friend. Don't be sad, there are still many beauties on Earth, and today he's on his, George's, territory, so let him sit and relax. There were sofas surrounding each table, forming a square for more people, so the guy raised his hand and loudly called someone over. 3 buxom workers looked at them, waving their hands enticingly. George introduced them to Adam in turn. Then he pointed to Sinclair himself and introduced him to the girls. They immediately surrounded the handsome guy, showering him with compliments, while George remained somewhere on the sidelines. Meanwhile, at the table next to them, someone loudly slammed a bottle of alcohol on the table. The young guy sat in a waddle, hugging the most beautiful workers. He complained that his brother took him McLaren, and that's why he lost to that brat Fred. On his right side was a couple, a local girl and a red-haired man named Michael Burse, the young guy's bodyguard. He replied that he simply lost the race, and there was no need to blame the car for that. His interlocutor was obviously very drunk, and was now laughing with all his might. Throwing his hands on the girl's shoulders, Zachary Wade said that the man became his bodyguard only because he could not get through to his father's side. At this time, Lily came up to quietly pour more alcohol into the glass. Narrowing his eyes, Zachary looked slyly at the man, asking if it was because he couldn't keep his mouth shut. He smiled widely and replied that, being a C-rank hero, why would his master be bothered by such things? The mocking expression instantly disappeared from the guy's face, and he sked in displeasure. Zachary jumped up and, from a sudden surge of rage, slapped Lily in the face, cursing why there was such staff here at all. The girl couldn't stay on her feet and fell, hitting the sofa. Someone else's palm was imprinted on her cheek. Wade hysterically asked why he was served such disgusting alcohol. The reddened young face grimaced. How dare they force him to drink such swill? The next moment, the guy, hanging over the dancer, poured the contents of the bottle on her head. Adam, seeing this, tried to jump up, but George began to hold him back. Because his friend did not have the strength to compete with these people, the young master was the second son of a mechanical hero from the Berkshire Company, and his bodyguard was a C-rank hero Flaming Fist. Sinclair angrily threw away his friend's hand and muttered that he was aware of everything and was now just going to the restroom. Unhappy Lily was quietly sobbing, unable to get up. Sticky alcohol was running down her hair, and her face was still burning from a recent blow. Zachary sat down again, holding the girls close to him. His gaze fell on the table where there were several new bottles. And they know how to apologize. He added to the manager that the guilty girl must be finished off to the end, and the bar manager, knowing who this boy was, unquestioningly fulfilled any requests, loudly encouraging the man. Those present watched as he forcibly poured strong alcohol into Lily. Punishment overtook the scoundrel instantly. The hero in the rooster mask kicked him away from the girl. Romero was on all fours, coughing up bitter liquid and gasping for air. Adam approached the young master and his henchman, saying that he knew about the presence of the mechanical hero's son here. Zachary continued to carelessly pour alcohol into himself, mockingly muttering that the stranger was definitely on his turn to die today. His bodyguards covered him. The red-haired Flaming Fist came forward, interested in the guy. The rooster sat down on the sofa, crossed his legs, then crossed his arms over his chest. He offered a deal to brother Zachary. He, having heard the stranger's words, became interested, blinking drowsily. The bodyguard worriedly told the young master that it was already quite late, and he needed to leave. For this, the man received a glass bottle on the head. Zachary, without hesitation, threw mud at him, shouting that he would not go anywhere, because he was offered a deal. He swallowed the humiliating insult, gritting his teeth. Responding to the petty scoundrel means losing your job. Wade stood up and walked unsteadily towards Sinclair, asking what the deal was. The Flaming Fist nevertheless touched the gentleman on the shoulder, inviting him to sit down and rest. Throwing a threatening glance towards Adam, he assured that he would talk to this actor himself. While stirring the whiskey in the glass in a circular motion, the guy chuckled through the mask. Do they really want to attack him when he himself is against violence? However, for the fact that the bodyguard prevented him from talking about important matters with his master, punishment follows. And the rooster was ready to teach the fist a lesson. He slowly rose from his seat. The man, showing off, urged him to come closer. The bodyguard tightened the bandages on his hands, saying that it was still unknown who would teach whom a lesson. At that time, bright flashes of flame were gathering around him. A moment later, the fire smoothly flowed into his fists, and the hero pathetically said that the stranger was very unlucky, otherwise he would not have provoked him. Adam immediately realized that the bodyguard's ability was C-rank fire element attacks. The patrons of the bar, mingling with the staff, watched the unfolding scene from afar. The majority supported the rooster, saying that he was very brave for daring to challenge the student of an A-rank hero. Lily was taken under her wing by a colleague, offering help. She, still trembling, thanked. While the crowd was arguing about what the men were fighting about and whether the rooster could defeat the flame boxer, the latter wasted no time in running at his opponent, waving his flaming fists. But seeing that he didn't even move, apprehension flashed through the man's head. Why doesn't the guy try to evade? Is this really a trap? Adam skillfully shrugged off the attack as the fire passed right next to his face and mockingly asked if there would be anything else. The bodyguard bared his teeth. Since the day he became a hero, not a single enemy or beast could withstand his attack. The next second, he raised his fist, and the flames spread much further than last time, completely covering the rooster. The crowd recoiled in horror. The hero would definitely burn someone. Sinclair, meanwhile, was completely drowned in fire. Only his outline was visible. But the next moment a gloved hand appeared from the flames. Following her, the owner himself came out. The fire, like a pet, obediently spread to the sides. Flame Fist covered his face with his hand as his own power nearly burned him. He stared at his enemy in bewilderment. He was safe and sound. Adam reached out and activated his mental attack ability. The bodyguard's eyes turned white. His mouth opened in a silent scream, and he himself turned white. Taking advantage of the fact that the hero was in a trance, The rooster swung his hand and hit him just below the back of the head with the edge of his palm. The boxer immediately fell to the floor, passed out. Instantly sobered up, Zachary jumped up from his seat. What a strong man! The fiery boxer was struck down with just one blow. Sinclair sat down on one knee, extracting an ability from his fallen opponent. Ability C rank, Flame Strike, can create flames on the hands, perfect for a cook. The rooster stood up and slowly walked towards Wade. He, frightened, crawled onto the sofa with his feet, shaking his head in search of protection. Smiling ingratiatingly, he decided to talk to the stranger, asked what kind of deal he wanted to talk about, and that he would pay him right now if he needed money. Adam silently grabbed him by the neck and lifted him off the ground. Zachary, squirming with all his might, began to threaten his father. When the rooster said that he knew who his father was, the boy, trying to take someone else's hand from his throat, threatened that if he was killed, there would be no mercy from his father. The guy abruptly lowered the young gentleman to the ground and approached his ear, whispering that he was not going to kill, but wanted to share something. Looking into Zachary's eyes, the mask insinuatingly asked if he wanted to have the ability. Zachary froze, not believing his ears. Really? The rooster let go of his hand, and it became easier to breathe. Unable to stay on his feet, the guy fell and began to rub his bruised neck. That bastard thinks that he is a god and can just give him this ability. Adam threw a piece of paper on the ground, and leaving said that if the young master wants to receive the ability, let him come alone to this address in 7 days. Sinclair, having changed his clothes with the help of his ability, went outside. He immediately received a call from George, who was in the club, and shouted into the phone where he had gone. The guy replied that the bar was too noisy and he had to go outside to catch his breath. Ripley's delighted cry was heard from the receiver. Adam missed the incredible show. His friend promised to show everything that happened, and also invited the brunette to eat kebab. Sinclair's gaze settled on one of the city's high-rises, casting a bright light on the empty streets. The guy thought that the first part of the plan had been completed. Now it remains to wait for Zachary to fall for the hook. It is also worth starting to check the heroes from the inside in the Berkshire Company, so he will be able to find out the truth faster. Meanwhile, in the Berkshire heroes' office, there was an argument between part of the team. 3 heroes, led by a leader, sat at a large table in the shape of the letter P. All 4 of them stared intently at the large screen in front of them. In it, a man in a rooster mask skillfully dealt with the C-rank hero, Flaming Fist. The mechanical hero sitting at the head, a gray-haired man in a red and gold suit, with atypical heterochromia, folded his hands in front of him and asked the others to voice their thoughts about what happened. Hero Glacier Adventurer, a young guy with blue hair and a suit of the same color, spoke first, saying that the masked man used his hand like a knife to deal with Flame Boxer in 1 second. Most likely he is higher than B rank. The hero Lazy Swordsman, a man with a high ponytail and a long scar running through his left eye, objected to the adventurer. What killed Michael Burse was not a hand. Michael lost the moment the masked man made a movement with his hand. The third hero, of unusual appearance, Ethan Barton, with black eyes, his head crowned with blue horns, offered to look at the assessment of the Flaming Boxer's injuries from the identification department. He was the first to see what was written. His pitch-black eyes widened in disbelief. The rest of the heroes were stunned at once. Looking at the papers, Flame Boxer's ability was gone. Looks like they are facing a huge problem. The mechanical hero exhaled heavily, staring intently at the screen. The Lazy Swordsman asked a question to which no one knew the answer for sure. Where did this guy come from who can erase other people's abilities? Ethan replied that in his experience, only a C-rank hero had such an ability. The mechanical hero looked around the company and asked Barton if he was confident in his judgment. The Glacier Adventurer even jumped up from his seat and exclaimed that this was impossible. The old transporter, who already had 1 foot in the grave, could not appear right now. Ethan had to admit that the Berkshire Company could not deal with this issue on their own. They would have to inform the Hero Association about it. The Lazy Swordsman objected. A person with special abilities like him, no matter what company he finds himself in, will be used as a killing machine, so no one will report him. The mechanical hero tiredly massaged his temple and suggested not to be the first to report this. Let it be a secret of their company, then asked everyone to disperse to think. The next morning, in a huge mansion, the estate of Zachary Wade, the young master lay in bed, clutching the leaf thrown by the masked man, wondering if he could gain at least 1 ability. Having read the address again, He muttered in despair that the guy had offered a deal, which meant he needed something. Zachary squeezed the piece of paper forcefully and grinned. In any case, a couple more days and he will have the ability, the rest doesn't matter. Adam called George to the Louisville Museum, and to his friend's surprised question what they were doing here, Sinclair replied that he wanted to learn more about monsters so that it would be easier for him to escape when they met, and he himself wondered whether it was possible to extract the ability of a C-rank monster. Ripley nudged his friend with his elbow, pointing at the girls passing by. His friend probably came here not to learn about monsters, but to meet girls. Everyone knows that only beauties come here. But Adam ignored his friend's attack and pointed his finger to the side. He came here for this. The electric Tyrannosaurus, a C-rank monster, 7 meters tall, 12 meters long, appeared at an early stage, spewing electricity and causing many disasters, causing the entire city to be paralyzed. Because of him, 6 A-rank heroes, 13 B-rank heroes and 27 C-rank heroes died. Staring at the monster of incredible size, Adam said that he plans to write an article about the monster invasion. The mechanical mouth of the Tyrannosaurus remained open, in the same form as at the moment, when people finally managed to defeat it at the cost of incredible efforts and many victims. George opened his mouth in shock. This monster is so powerful. Sinclair came closer and, as if under hypnosis, extended his hand. If he can extract this terrible ability, then... A local security guard immediately ran up to him, waving a bat threateningly. The guy handed over his work badge, saying that he was a journalist and wanted to write an article about monsters. The guard examined the card and warned that in the museum you can look with your eyes, but not touch with your hands. At this moment, George winked at his friend. The frisky guy decided to talk to the man, leading him further into the hall. Asking where he could find pretty girls here, the guard immediately inquired about his sanity. Finally, Adam was able to return to his plans, and again reached out with his hand towards the monster, activating the extraction of abilities. Familiar impulses passed through the body, but the brunette noticed with surprise that the ability was difficult to extract. Finally, he succeeded, and a soft purple pearl was already levitating in his palm. But something out of the ordinary happened. He has learned the E-rank ability electricity, can create an electric ball, can also be used to charge the phone. Staring at the pearl in his hands, Sinclair asked himself in bewilderment, he only extracted an E-rank ability from an S-rank monster. Has such a powerful monster really lost its ability due to its long-ago demise? Perhaps the last time Adam was able to extract a higher-level ability from a monster because it was still alive. The guy, passing by the exhibits, thought disappointedly that it seemed that he would not get anything like that from the museum, but still, he needed to continue the search. When he returned to his room, the sun had already set and the sky turned pastel colors. The brunette laid out the loot on the table after going around the entire museum. Adam received only 3 low-rank abilities. 3 pearls, 2 red, 1 purple, flickered and sparkled, each emitting its own ability. The first is the F-rank ability clone, which can be used to create a clone that exists for a minute, and can also be used to turn on the light. The second is the E-rank ability electricity, can create an electric ball, can also be used to charge the phone. The third F-rank ability human control, can make any person show interest in you, but you are not going to use the ability to commit unethical acts, right? The guy, resting his chin on his hand, thought upset that the power of these abilities was so weak that it scared him away. But if abilities can be combined, can they also be destroyed? Adam raised the golden pearl, a C-rank fire ability, to eye level, thinking about how it could be used in his intended task. He exclaimed out loud, "Destroy." The pearl caught fire in his hand, trembling slightly, but nothing happened. The brunette decided not to give up and try again. This time something happened. The pearl began to crack. The ability was destroyed. Now on the table in front of Sinclair lay several dark, barely shining cubes of different sizes. Level 1, Dark Magic, Base Substance, Perfect and Unbreakable Square. The brunette brought one of them closer to his eyes. Could it be that abilities are created from these cubes, and he can actually destroy the ability? He began to think, the ability could be broken down into its most basic components, cubes of dark energy. In one hand he held a cube, in the other a red pearl. Then, accordingly, and for sure, he will be able to use these cubes of dark energy to enhance his abilities. Driven by his own thoughts, Sinclair connected the 2 items. The ability actually improved. The E-rank ability is human control, provides the opportunity to mentally get closer to the target, the ability to deceive people. Now you can start engaging in scams. The brunette did not believe his own happiness. If the ability really improved, he can create an S-rank ability himself. His thoughts were interrupted by screams coming from the corridor. His neighbor Lily Romero was screaming, asking someone to leave and not touch her. At first, Adam thought that Zachary Wade had come to the girl to plant the night before. But oddly enough, her parents turned out to be unexpected guests. Her mother stood aside. Her father swore with all his might, sitting on the sofa and smoking a pipe, while his daughter sobbed inconsolably next to her. He took a drag and blew out thick smoke, saying that he was not deliberately trying to deceive his daughter. Sinclair left just at that moment, quietly closing the door behind him. The man shouted again. If they had not done this, the girl would not have sent the money. The mother spoke up. Lily's brother needs money to buy a house and a car, and also to get a wife. All this costs $1 million. Where can parents get it from? The girl immediately stopped sobbing and clenched her fist. Had her parents really deceived her by saying that her father was sick and she urgently needed to send money? A new stream of tears flowed from her eyes. The girl asked if they knew how desperate she was when she learned about her father's illness. Covering her face with her hand, Lily whispered bitterly that she worked 4 shifts from morning to night, just to earn money as quickly as possible. The father exhaled smoke and said indifferently that the family's first thought was for the daughter to send as much as she could, and he would have a way to find the rest later, because the Lily family's bloodline could not end with them. The girl defiantly asked if this was just a way to bring her home and sell her to a man she didn't even know. The mother took her inconsolable daughter by the hand, saying that even if this man does not receive a higher education, he is still honest and kind. He will not treat her badly. Lily pulled her hand away with force, screaming. Did her parents even think for a second about where the $50,000 she sent a week ago came from? Swallowing angry tears, she admitted that she worked as a bartender and servant, and became an escort for this. The shocked parents looked at their daughter silently, as if they were struck by lightning. The father jumped up from the sofa, pointing his finger at Lily. What a shame, she ruined the family's reputation. He swung at his daughter, throwing mud at her and threatening to beat her. But she turned her head away, defiantly answering that the clients beat her harder than her own father ever did. At that second, Adam jumped up and managed to grab the man's palm, saying that he could discuss everything with his own daughter. The man turned around in disbelief. How dare someone interrupt him? He spat at his feet, telling the unfamiliar guy that he had no right to interfere while he was punishing his daughter. Sinclair astutely noted that the man did not seem to regret what had happened at all. Remorse could only be seen in the mother's eyes. The guy decided to take extreme measures, to help her and see if she could help Lily, and therefore activated the C-rank ability Human Control the Woman. As if someone had possessed her, swung her hand and slapped her husband in the face. He could not stand on his feet and fell to the ground. Now his wife scolded him, saying that his daughter had become an escort. Did he really have a heart of stone? She rushed to Lily with hugs. Both were crying. The woman asked for forgiveness for offending her daughter, because she was her dearest child. The man, without getting up from his knees, sighed. Then her brother will earn everything himself. Adam remembered his unfortunate sister, whose life was supported by medical devices. Everything is fine, as long as people understand it in time, who in this world would not feel sorry for their own family. The next morning, the guy went with Lily to accompany her parents to the train station. The girl waved at them through the window, urging them to be careful, and promised to come for the new year. Her mother waved back, urging her not to do anything stupid again. The brunette was holding a glass of drink in his hands. His neighbor thanked him for the company and said that he could already return. Sinclair handed the girl a glass, expressing the hope that her brother would realize everything, and it would be much more useful than any amount of money his sister would send. Lily winked playfully, asking the guy to come closer so she could tell him something. He blushed, but complied with the request. The next second, Romero planted a grateful kiss on the man's lips. Pulling away, the girl thanked her neighbor again in a whisper. Night fell on the city. Adam, dressed in a rooster costume, stopped at a tall building, a center for processing monster corpses, where there was heavy security. It was there that a huge number of monster corpses were stored. This should have made it easier for the guy to gain access to new abilities. A large truck drove past, turning toward the building, and a thought arose in Sinclair's head. It seemed that there was only a special way to get inside. Without waiting for the truck to stop, he slid his boots across the floor, arching backwards. At the bottom of the car, along the entire perimeter, there were structures attached, similar to bars, and Adam firmly clung to one of them with both hands. A heavy sigh was heard from under the mask, but the brunette realized that he was not alone in such an unusual place. There was a girl's face right in front of his face, and the stranger motioned for him to be silent. The brunette obediently did not utter a word, surprised by the company. Was this man also trying to get into the center? At the very beginning, because of the darkness, he still doubted who was in front of him, but the feeling of close contact with a woman's breast dispelled all doubts. The guy said hello, stuttering, and remarked that they were lucky. The stranger grimaced and hissed at him. What a damn coincidence. She was so unlucky that he was here. Now she would have to act according to the rules of the field and rely on her abilities. The girl's name was Regina Craig. She was a representative of the Latesville Chamber of Commerce. She introduced herself and asked Adam who he was. Regina looked into the dark glasses of the mask, saying that they would soon reach the unloading zone. But for now she could not get off the truck in this position. Suddenly, Sinclair grabbed her tightly by the waist, urging her to hold on to him, and pushed to the side, flying out from under the truck. They found themselves lying on the asphalt. The guy took the entire blow on himself, without ceasing to squeeze his new acquaintance in his hands. Realizing that she was not going to move, he carefully asked how long she would continue to hug him like this. Regina was blown away from the guy by the wind. Stepping to the side, she replied that if the situation did not require it, who would even want to hug him? Finally, they reached the monster corpse processing room. Adam walked carefully behind the girl. She noticed this and asked why the guy was acting as if he had never seen anything like this. Maybe he was completely new to this business. Sinclair bowed his head, acknowledging the girl's seniority, which made her happy, so Craig couldn't help but let him follow her. They entered a large room, in which a defeated monster lay on a large metal bench, a werewolf, with a powerful body covered with fur. Regina said that her boss wanted the white hair on the werewolf's chest and would have to carefully cut it off, which she did. Then she took out an unusually shaped bag from somewhere. The girl boastfully told Adam that this was her ability storage bag, in which you can store a lot of things. The guy thought that this was a shameful name for a cosmic ability. Regina turned and called Sinclair to follow her into the next processing room. But the brunette was already busy extracting the ability from the werewolf. He managed to obtain the ability D-rank metal transformation, which can change the appearance of any metal, the dream of any car service owner. Immediately, ear-deafening sounds were heard. Adam jumped on the spot. The girl also jumped. Had the alarm really gone off and they had been discovered? An employee in a white suit appeared at the door, swearing. He cried out, sobbing, that the monster was not dead. The couple stood frozen as they watched the action unfold before them. Huge tentacles squeezed through the door, wrapped themselves around the man, and dragged him along. He could only utter a cry for help. It seemed that the danger for Regina and Adam had passed. The guy did not move from his place, and the girl leaned on his shoulder, asking him to hold her, otherwise her legs would weaken from what she saw. But the happiness did not last long. The girl felt someone's sticky touch on her shoulder. Before she had time to let out a scream, one of the tentacles was already dragging her somewhere. The guy extended his hand, trying to reach the unfortunate woman. He immediately summoned his force fire ability. The fast tentacle dragged the girl away. Adam couldn't keep up with her, and the fireball he created, it seemed, couldn't either. Jumping over another obstacle, the guy noticed something. There are all metal posts here. Exactly. A blue pearl, the D-rank ability metal transformation, has already begun to levitate in the palm of my hand. Several metal objects transformed into tentacles and reached towards Regina. With sharp ends, they cut off the end of the tentacle that was holding the girl from the monster. She fell to the floor, hitting her whole body painfully. Sinclair ran to her, asking as he went if everything was okay. The girl sat on her knees and complained that there were hooks on the tentacles that scratched her because of this. Her t-shirt was torn, almost exposing one breast. A roar was heard. The couple turned around and saw that the monster had come to life again. An incredibly sized skull with fangs, in which many tentacles swarmed. Dozens of them held down the center's employees, who squirmed and screamed in pain and fear. Regina stared in his direction in disbelief, her mouth open. The skull turned slightly and noticed them. He immediately released several tentacles towards the guy and girl. Adam summoned metal transformation again. The skull soared up to the high ceiling, pointing its tentacles at people. The guy began to attack the alien with a huge metal shield, connecting several stands together. Raising her head, Regina watched in horror as the shield thinned under the monster's set, and screamed at her partner to come up with another way. In a panic, she covered her head with her hands, squealing hysterically that she would die and be eaten. Adam was thinking hard about what to do, because this couldn't go on for long, and he remembered that he had seen several cans of gasoline. He tried to console Regina, telling her not to be afraid, because he had an idea. The guy pushed the shield in front of him and summoned metal tentacles using his ability. The canisters of gasoline seen earlier followed them. All this soared upward, straight to the alien's skull. Adam ordered the small pearl that accompanied the tentacle canisters to explode. There was a deafening explosion. Thanks to gasoline, the fire poured out in different directions. The brunette grabbed the girl by the hand and pulled her along, calling on the others to run. They seemed to have pulled away from the raging flames, but suddenly an unknown man blocked their way, holding some kind of weapon behind his back. Looking sternly at the couple, he asked if they were the thieves who brought the monster to life to attack the center. Adam stood silently, but Regina put her hands on her hips and began to attack the man, asking who he was and why he was talking nonsense as soon as he appeared. He angrily called the girl a disrespectful child, and that in the prime of his life she still drank milk. Regina was not convinced. She became even more angry, hissing that he was acting disrespectfully, being an elderly man. But then Adam recognized the old man, and loudly exclaimed his name: Thomas Conley, the hero who defeated King Kong Berserk 10 years ago. The man chuckled. The guy was more respectful, and continued that he would deal with him when he finished with the monster. The guy was surprised what an A-rank hero was doing in the corpse processing center. Thomas reached for his weapon and used the North Star attack, Style 1, Greedy Wolf attack. A ghostly blue wolf rushed forward, cutting the tentacles lengthwise and crosswise. The pair looked on in admiration at what the hero was doing, Adam noting that, as expected from the legendary inherited power called Polar Star attack, each one of them is an advanced technique. Even those with S-rank abilities would have to take a few steps back. There was a roar from the skull monster. Conley jumped up to get closer to the alien's head. Torn pieces of tentacles scattered across the hall. The hero summoned the ability attack of the North Star, Style 2, Hunger of the Heavens. Pushing to the side, he saw how the skull had lost its tentacles, moving in anger only the severed appendages. Finally, the man released Water of Heaven, sending his katana and streams of water towards the alien. The space shook, and after a few seconds Sinclair was already watching the monster being torn to pieces. Thomas dropped to one knee. Behind him bloody scraps scattered across the hall, all that was left of the alien. The hero pointed the katana at Adam, saying that now it was time to deal with the guy. He immediately noticed intense eyes filled with determination and murderous intent. Sinclair tried to convince the older hero that they were not the ones who brought this beast to life. The man, without changing his position, replied that this was nonsense, because the couple looked too suspicious. Regina whispered to Adam with concern if he had confidence that he would defeat this old man. The guy replied that he couldn't, but did she want to? The girl shook her head and said that she wanted to lend him a weapon. She shoved armor made from the materials of a rank B monster into the guy's hands and ran away, shouting as she went that the armor would help, and she would root for him. Adam, having examined the object, chuckled. What madness! Regina reminded him of Trisha. Thomas suddenly, without warning, attacked the guy, raising his katana over him. Fortunately, Sinclair managed to react at the last moment. He put his hand forward and the armor given by Regina deflected the attack, surprising the older hero. The brunette himself was amazed at such a powerful defense. Thomas did not give up, and regularly wielded his weapon, increasingly advancing on the guy. He exhaled heavily and activated the brain reboot ability. The ability made it possible to slow down the hero's movements in the eyes of Adam. The mask stared at Conley. The guy thought that after activating brain reboot, the attack seemed slower, but it was still not enough to defeat him. Screaming furiously, the old hero began to rush towards the guy with redoubled strength. He, even in slow motion, realized that he did not have time to dodge. I had to use extreme measures, the human control ability. The old man realized that everything was not going according to plan when he could not control his movements in the air. He hissed in disbelief, asking the guy if he stopped his movements. Both opponents grouped and sank to the ground. Adam calmly said that he would have been in danger if he had not done this. Thomas, who would not have suffered defeat, once again ran away with his sword at the ready. Are these tricks really all that petty thieves are capable of? Adam used metal transformation again, and a whole staff grew from the small object in his hand. The two heroes clashed weapons overnight. Sinclair's eyes, safely hidden under his mask, studied the old man. Each of his attacks is strong. Human control can be used to stop him for a short time, and so that Adam is not cut into two parts. The employees of the center who watched the fight vied with each other to put forward theories about the origin of the man in the rooster mask. If he can fight with Thomas Conley, could he be the A-rank hero of the 6th Zone God of Weapons? The brunette heard and wondered who the God of Weapons even was. Finally, Thomas stopped and pulled the weapon away, deep in thought. Judging by the guy's attacks, he was most likely not a thief. The man hid his katana behind his back and ordered everyone present to leave the corpse processing area because he wanted to talk to the rooster. The workers blinked in surprise and asked if they all needed to leave. The hero flashed his eyes dangerously. Someone is not going to listen to the order of the manager of this center. Regina, along with the others, ran towards the exit, shouting to Adam that she would be waiting for him outside. The men were left alone. The guy asked what the older hero wanted from him. He replied that he knew that the brunette was not the God of Weapons, because the skills were incomparable with the skills of God, only the metal ability slightly resembled him. But someone like Adam has several abilities, which means he can be considered a strong person who would never come to the center just to steal some fur. Thomas narrowed his eyes and seriously asked the brunette, did he come here in search of a world secret? Sinclair, without expressing surprise, thought, what is the world secret? What is he even talking about? We need to learn more from him. Therefore, the guy decided to cheat and said that he came here in search of a world secret. The man suddenly burst out laughing, exclaiming that it would be very good to tell such a young and ambitious, strong person like a guy. Pointing his hand to the side, the hero admitted that the real purpose of creating this center was to open a one-way tunnel to the world of monsters. This tunnel was called the White Hole. It's good that the rooster's mask skillfully hid Adam's emotions. He was shocked by what he heard. 15 years ago, the White Hole of the city of Louisville was successfully discovered. The Hero Association sent a small team of high-ranking heroes with a special mission to infiltrate the world of monsters, and Thomas himself was on that team. During this mission, many S-rank heroes died. Only he and 2 others were able to return because they risked their lives. The man said that, in fact, each monster corpse processing center is built on the weakest points of the earth. As long as they continued to burn the monsters' bodies at these weak points, they would be able to open a white hole leading to the monster world. Adam nodded at the corpse of the tentacled monster and asked what about it, why the alien came to life. Conley said that this is something that they do not tell the outside world. In fact, it is a mutation of the monster that rubbed against the white hole. People on this planet are like animals trapped by beasts. Only when they all gather the strongest qualities of humanity will they have a chance to win. The elderly hero turned around and said goodbye to Adam that he could go. Regardless of what organization he belonged to, he must remember that he was part of humanity. It turns out that the men's conversation was heard by the powers that be. A beautiful red-haired woman stood next to the chair in which the elderly man was sitting. She said displeasedly that this old man Thomas Conley continues to do stupid things. How could he even tell such things to the outside world? The man calmly replied that even if he had not told about it, sooner or later other organizations would have found out about it, and it was impossible to keep a world secret only between narrow circles. The woman asked if the headquarters video conference was here. It involves more than 25 people who have already fulfilled the necessary conditions for consideration of a Category S case. The couple turned from the window to the screens, carefully peering at the people on them. Here's what the Louisville Metro Heroes Association has to say. And looking at each other, they began the conference. The main question on the agenda: is it necessary to tell the truth to associations of owners of heroes who exceed A rank? Adam came to the hospital again to visit his sister, who was lying in a coma. He often did this. He sat next to him and talked, not knowing whether she could hear him or not. Addressing her by name, he said that today he was told one harsh truth. Earlier, Sinclair, after talking with the hero, left the corpse processing area, into another room, where he was met by a buzzing crowd, people asking each other what was happening inside. Did this guy really defeat Thomas? Why was he the only one who came out? The guy first approached Regina. The girl asked if everything was okay. He understood that he could not let other people know about his abilities. The guy replied that he was fine and asked her to come closer and look into his eyes. The girl complied with the request in bewilderment. As expected, Adam used his human control ability on her. Regina's consciousness became foggy, and her vision went double. The man in the rooster mask ordered her to forget that he was using fire and metal powers. He also gave her the armor and made her believe that it was he who brought the girl protection and owed her 10,000. Adam then snapped his fingers. Regina woke up as if waking up from a dream. She quickly said that she was glad that everything was fine with the boss, that she already had a curfew at home, so she would go first, and rushed away. Remembering these events, sitting in the hospital room, Adam smiled, looking at his sister. This Craig is so similar to her. She is sweet and loves money. Stroking Trisha's cold cheek, he said that after revenge he would find a way to wake her up. Full of determination, the guy returned home after dark. He sat down at the table, ready to experiment with his abilities, holding a piece of metal in his hand. The metal transformation ability was activated. A star absorption ring appeared on Adam's finger. He then shook the ability medicine in his hand. The brunette can't let people know his true ability, and must use these two things to trick Zachary Wade. New snake appearance. The appearance has changed with a white mask with blue stripes on it. Adam tried on the mask. The new set of clothes will be called Snake. His abilities will be different from the abilities of his second self, Casper Bart, and the guy will also be able to use fire attacks when necessary. Thanks to the fact that Casper became a part of this, an organization consisting of his many guises will appear. It will be called the Judges. Adam's main goal is to judge those heroes who have fallen, and the expenses of the organization will be decided by the young master Zachary Wade. Late at night, Sinclair arrived at the agreed meeting place with the guy. He was fast asleep right on the floor. The brunette kicked him, forcing him to wake up. At first he did not understand who was standing above him and began to threaten, but a second later he recognized the man in the mask and began to apologize. Adam thanked the young master for the visit, and noted his confidence in him. Zachary clung to the masked man's legs, screaming that boss Casper Bart could have whatever he wanted if he gave him the ability. He listed all the benefits that he could bestow on this person. Sinclair kicked the annoying minion away, answering that he was not interested. Hanging menacingly over the guy, Adam insinuatingly said that it's easy to get the ability, you just have to look into his eyes. Then he used the human control ability. Zachary's consciousness immediately split into two, plunging into an unconscious state. To begin with, Adam asked to tell him about the blue pill. There was no answer. The guy just sat in front of him, staggering slightly, and did not react at all. Sinclair cursed to himself. What's going on? Did it really not work out? He then asked Zachary to slap himself. When this request was not fulfilled, Adam began to wonder if it might be that the guy already had an ability higher than C rank, which made human control ineffective on him. The brunette used a mental attack. Wade fell to the ground with his eyes closed. Sinclair remembered that last time he didn't attack him in the bar, but it doesn't seem like he has any ability. Anyway, why not give it a try? Taking advantage of the extraction of the ability, the brunette was incredibly surprised. Zachary actually already has the ability. A bright green pearl burst out of the guy's body and flew up to his palm. A rank A ability is Rebirth. Only once, after death, you can be reborn and go back a day. The ability can only be used after death, and it's very stupid. As the pearl hung in the air, casting an emerald light, Adam still couldn't believe that the young master had an A rank ability. He directed the ability towards himself, deciding that he would be kind to Zachary in this case, because this ability would allow him to turn the tide of events. And now he will invest in the Gaia Pearl that he received at the corpse processing center. Adam woke up Wade, who sat up abruptly, screaming to be given the ability, and in general, when he managed to fall asleep. The brunette replied that this happened because of fatigue, then took out a metal ring, asking to look at it. Then he explained, surprising the guy, that this stellar absorption ring made by the organization can be used to steal ability factors from others. Adam then handed him the ability medicine, telling him that the organization uses special methods and turns these ability factors into a medicine that can give ordinary people abilities. Zachary almost dropped the bottle from his hands. It's so special. Is he really being deceived? Adam replied that he could drink and find out whether it was true or not. The gears in the guy's head were spinning at double speed. At first he thought it was poison, but if Casper wanted to kill him, he wouldn't delay it until today. He doesn't care. he'll do it. Zachary made up his mind and drank the liquid in one gulp. The empty bottle fell out of my hand and broke with a clang. His eyes became bloodshot, and he growled loudly. The guy fell to his knees in front of Adam, clutching his head. The masked man laughed. Soon he will learn the power of his abilities. Wade instantly transformed. Screaming that his whole body was on fire, he became a real werewolf. This actually has nothing to do with the cure. It was Sinclair who controlled the pearl from a distance. The transformation did not stop there. Instead of human ears, animal ones appeared. Long and sharp claws grew on its paws. Now a huge and muscular wolf with burning eyes towered in front of Adam. The brunette asked what the werewolf thought about the ability to transform. He looked at the animal's palms in surprise, asking if this was an ability, and whether he became stronger or weaker than his brother, who can turn into a dragon. Sinclair replied that his brother had an A-rank ability, but Zachary only had an E-rank ability. He roared when he heard about the difference of 3 ranks. The brunette coughed and urged the werewolf not to worry, because he had just joined the organization. Later they could give him F-rank medicine. The werewolf made a funny face. Adam thought about why the guy turned into a werewolf, but he became stupid and cute, like a husky dog. The brunette also said that given the fact that the organization would have to work with a werewolf, he changed it to an E rank for Zachary. He thought, it follows that there are other abilities in the organization. Does this mean that one day he will become stronger than his father? The guy barked, hugging his savior by the torso, and begged Adam to change the ability to a rank for him. He waved it off in disgust. The werewolf continued, shedding a tear, that he would call the boss his godfather, because he had never met a person who would be so kind to him. Adam still tried to discourage the beast, answering that he did not have such an opportunity, because the organization its own rules, and a high rank can only be achieved with sufficient achievements. Zachary obediently sat on his hind legs, asking about the organization. Sinclair answered, urging him to listen carefully. The name of the organization is Judges. It was created by one powerful man. Under the boss there are 12 zodiac leaders, and Casper's nickname himself is the Rooster from the 12 zodiacs. The werewolf asked how powerful the boss is, since his godfather is only the leader. Adam replied that there is no need to try to guess. The boss is not someone who often shows his face. He is very mysterious. Zachary immediately asked how quickly he could earn his achievements. The brunette replied that this happens by completing tasks, and the first one has already appeared. Pointing his finger at the werewolf, Bert said that he would use his identity as the young master of the Berkshire Company to find information about the blue pill. The werewolf asked what it was. He was told that it seemed to be a pill that could increase someone's strength. Casper himself arrived in Louisville to find out about the forces behind this thing. Zachary's eyes sparkled. It could really increase someone's power. What a wonderful thing. For this he got hit in the back of the head. Adam sternly replied that there was no need to harbor evil ideas, because there was a hero who used her and accidentally harmed an innocent person. At that moment, the werewolf returned to his human form. Scratching the back of his head, Zachary asked who exactly harmed the man. Sinclair said, the A-rank hero of his company, Glacier Adventurer. Wade screamed in shock, amazed by what he heard. Bruce Rash, always acting cool, but in reality he is just a regular drug addict. Casper said that when the young master finds useful information, they will meet here again, and then he will give Zachary a D-rank ability. He nodded his head. When leaving, Sinclair decided to teach the young master a lesson and said he forgot to warn him about something. The effect of the medicine lasts only a week. The guy has limited time, which means the task must be completed within a week. Zachary fell to his knees again, crying out desperately. In the morning, fresh and cheerful, Adam walked along the sidewalk, sipping soda from a glass.